Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Now these days, movie news encompasses a lot more than just official announcements from the studios. There are rumors, of course, which we already are well aware of, but then also we have, since so many people are involved in so many different projects, when they're promoting one, they're asked about many other projects as well. And they promote said projects way in advance. So you get little tidbits of information sprinkled here and there. And then, of course, it's the job of the entertainment media to harvest them and deliver them to you. So we have three stories today that kind of run the gamut of those kind of sources of movie news information. And the first one is a rumor. Now, this has some potential spoilers. Spoilers for a trailer for Star Wars. A trailer is coming, a new full trailer. Of course, we had that very short teaser trailer, which was highly effective right around Thanksgiving. I think it came out like right after Thanksgiving, yes, because I remember they released it while I was getting my Christmas tree, and I was like, God damn it! Why? Who releases a trailer the day after Thanksgiving? It was so frustrating and annoying, but made up for it by being an awesome trailer. But a new trailer is coming, so there's some rumors as to what's going to be in that. So if you want to find out now, keep listening. But if you want to keep your eyes all fresh and virgin-y for the trailer for when it does come out, and it's not that far away, so you don't have to wait too long, then you can click either the annotation here on the screen to jump to the next story, or, as I've been doing for a couple of weeks now, you can go into the video description and click on the time to go for the next story as well. That's a way to skip ahead if you happen to be on your phone. Or if you just turn off annotations, which I know some people do because they don't like them messing up their picture. Okay, so, alright, I've given people plenty of time to get out of here before there are spoilers. Let's discuss. Now, while the first teaser trailer seemed to focus largely on new elements that were being introduced to the franchise, like John Boyega and Daisy Ridley, and that cool cross-like lightsaber, it seems like the first full trailer is going to throw back to the past and to showcase, of course, some of the actors from the original trilogy who will be partaking in this film. So Han Solo is supposed to show up, Harrison Ford, a real-life hero after his harrowing plane crash on Friday, or late Thursday. I forget exactly when it happened, but there was a big news story during the day on Friday. He saved a lot of people's lives by safely crashing his plane, like a vintage, I believe it was like a World War II plane, on a golf course. He sustained some injuries, but he's going to be just fine. And I think it was a close call for him, and I think for his fans, and for Lucasfilm. But everything's okay. It ended up being, I think, some good publicity for him, and I think people are going to see him return to the silver screen as Han Solo when this trailer debuts. When is this trailer coming out? Well, there are two potential times that it could surface. One, of course, is in front of Avengers Age of Ultron, and it will probably play in front of Avengers Age of Ultron no matter what. But it might debut a little earlier. Some people are saying it could debut mid-April when they have the annual Star Wars celebration. I think that would be a great time to debut it. I think the middle of April will be a little bit of a quiet time in terms of, publicity-wise. It'll be after Fast 7 has hit theaters. And of course, right in time to play in front of Avengers Age of Ultron, which opens overseas early in April and in many countries. So even though we're getting it May 1st here in the United States, you're going to see a lot of Avengers Age of Ultron news and spoilers hitting the internet in late April. I think some countries, some of you have been saying you're getting it April 23rd. So that would coincide perfectly with this Star Wars celebration. Now, here's the big reveal, and I'm surprised they're doing this in the trailer, but I think it's been such a rumor at this point that they really can't hide it for that much longer, and that's that they're going to reveal that the cloaked figure who has that cross-like lightsaber is Mark Hamill, aka Luke Skywalker. I think this is a wonderful development. I am rooting for evil Luke Skywalker. I feel that Luke Skywalker is a character that never really gelled in the original trilogy. I think that he was meant to be the hero, the swashbuckling hero, but I think that he couldn't compete, unfortunately, with Harrison Ford's Han Solo. And Han Solo, just like he stole the girl, which they made Luke's sister, so it was okay, he kind of stole, I think, the original trilogy from Luke Skywalker. Now, Skywalker is an interesting character. He's, of course, very important to the story, but I think when people pick a favorite character, I'd be really curious, is anyone's favorite character Luke Skywalker? And if so, please defend him in the comments down below. but I think that he's a character that would be a perfect, you know, individual to bring over to the dark side. It runs in his family. You know, they're like, boy, those Skywalkers, they're pretty susceptible to the dark side. They have no willpower. And also, I think Mark Hamill is a really talented actor who, of course, as we all know, did a wonderful job with the voice of the Joker in Batman the Animated Series and several of the video games until I believe Troy Baker took over for him. And Troy Baker does a pretty good Joker himself. But anyway, I think that Mark Hamill, in a villainous role, actually seems to have a little bit more depth and charisma than he does in the more heroic role. I think that it's just something that Hamill embraces more, and it gives him a little more room to play. I don't think he cuts the figure of your traditional hero, and I think perhaps he was miscast. But I think that if he's a villain, he'll be able to really cut loose. Even in Kingsman: The Secret Service, he had a very short cameo, but he was able to play with it a little bit. His voice with his British accent sounded a little jokery, and I just think that it could be very interesting to see him indeed in such a role. And I have to say, he staggers in the snow pretty darn good. I thought that figure was very compelling, not just because of his lightsaber in the teaser, but the way he moved. And everyone said, oh, it's a stocky figure. It couldn't be Gwendolyn Christie, which some people thought it might be. But I think it looks a lot like Mark Hamill when you think about it, right? So I think these are very interesting developments. I think it's going to make this trailer huge if this is indeed the case, although the trailer will be huge no matter what. But I'm curious what you think of this. Is it too early to give away these things? And also, what do you think of switching the focus to some of the original characters, the older characters that people are very excited to see? All right, so that's the first story of the day. Welcome back if you skipped forward, okay? Now we're going to move over. You might want to avoid the comments as well if you're trying to avoid spoilers. Now we're going to move to the second story of the day, which is Jeremy Renner. Now Jeremy Renner, of course, is starting to do a lot of publicity for Avengers Age of Ultron. They're doing a lot of set visits, set visits that were done when it was filming, and then Marvel obviously asked people to wait to, print the stories or post them online until it was time to advertise the movie. So that's why you're seeing a lot of them surface now. I think Marvel, from what I've seen, is very good at pocketing, or investing set visits and media coverage for when they need it later on. So very clever publicity department over there. But Jeremy Renner, of course, everyone's like, man, what's with Hawkeye? Why aren't you ever in the movie? And Jeremy Renner's like, oh, but I am in the movie. Let me tell you how things have gotten better for me ever since I complained really loudly about the lack of Hawkeye in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So he's saying things are going to change considerably. I'm not going to just be a zombie like I was in the first Avengers. I got stuff to do. So he's saying I have a much bigger role in Avengers Age of Ultron, and I think everyone's like, well, not based on the trailer, buddy. And then also he says he has a significant role in Civil War, which they're going to begin shooting pretty soon. So I think that's very interesting for a couple of reasons. First, I'm curious if everybody here, I know there have been some Jeremy Renner Hawkeye fans, but do you honestly think, considering all the characters in the MCU, which is rapidly expanding, do you think that Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye has the ability to be as popular and well fleshed out as Black Widow? Unless they show what happened in Budapest, I don't know if I personally see it. They've been able to do a lot with Black Widow, I think not only with the way that Joss Whedon has depicted her, also the Russo brothers. She was really great in, Captain America Winter Soldier. But I think Scarlett Johansson has brought a lot to the role as well. And as much as I like Jeremy Renner, I don't think he's any role I've seen him in, I don't really think he's brought a lot to the table. He doesn't allude to hidden depths. So you're not like, oh, I'd like to spend more time with that guy. You're like, no, I think I got a pretty good idea of what's going on there. Let's move on. So I don't think that Hawkeye is a character that I personally am looking to see more of, especially if it's going to be at the expense of screen time for other characters, which I enjoy exponentially more. But he's going to be a bigger part of these movies, so we'll see. I'm curious if people still want that. But then also my question is Civil War still really a Captain America movie, considering how many people are in this movie at this point? You've got Black Widow, you've got Nick Fury, you've got Hawkeye, the whole S.H.I.E.L.D. crew. That was fine, because of course Captain America, having no life of his own, really is just, like a S.H.I.E.L.D. operative plus. Although S.H.I.E.L.D., considerably, doesn't still exist at the point of Civil War. But, all of his old S.H.I.E.L.D. cronies, they're all still hanging out together. But then, you've got Black Panther coming into the picture. You've got Iron Man, of course, Tony Stark. Robert Downey Jr. is like, boy, that second movie did pretty well. I want to be in here too. And then now you have Spider-Man. swinging into the mix. So these are so many characters. You really have to wonder, at what point is this no longer a Captain America movie? Should they call it Captain America Civil War? Maybe he'll be the lead or the linchpin. We'll see. Maybe it'll be told from his perspective. But still, there's so many characters in here. I think it really is just becoming another Avengers movie. And, how long can Marvel keep that from happening to all their films? At what point are they all just Avengers films, right? I think it's going to be a very slippery slope. And perhaps Civil War should have been an Avengers movie and shouldn't have been a Captain America film. We'll see. But on a side note, I wanted to talk about Chris Evans and how much he seems to have embraced his role as Captain America. This guy's been acting for a very long time. He's really quite funny, and I think it's interesting that the role that it's made him famous has absolutely no humor in it really whatsoever. Occasionally he says something that's funny, but he plays the straight man. For those of you who are unaware, that's a comedic term. I've used that term before, and people are like, I didn't think that Captain America was gay. Why would you have to specify that he was straight? No, straight man is, the one in a comedy duo who is the one who's serious and kind of like, receives the jokes, or, the other person plays off of them. So he's the straight man, often, even when there is something comedic going on. But I think that it's wonderful that you're talking about someone who was thinking of quitting acting and saying, oh, I want to just direct, and I don't know how much longer I'm going to do this. But, he stuck it out, he didn't give up, and now he's in a situation where not only is he one of the main characters of the MCU, right up there with Robert Downey Jr., at least that's what they're trying to do. We'll see how it works out. I'm rooting for Chris Evans. I really think that he's coming to his own as Captain America. But also I think it's wonderful that he loves being the character so much. And the reason I bring this up is that he and Chris Pratt apparently made a Super Bowl bet. And the loser would have to go and visit a children's hospital wearing a costume of the winner's choice. Well, Chris Pratt lost, so Chris Evans had him go and visit the Seattle Children's Hospital. However, Chris Evans didn't make him dress up in costume. Chris Pratt went in his civilian clothes, but then Chris Evans went with him in his Captain America outfit. Now, of course, he had he had brown hair and a bit of a beard, so some kids might have been like, you're not Captain America. No, I'm sure they were all thrilled. And he went, and we have some pictures here. They were also posted by the news and Seattle Children's Hospital themselves. And you can just see that Chris Evans is so into it and being the character and, bringing a lot of joy to these children. I think it's wonderful. Although I also think it's funny that in some of the photos here you'll see from the Seattle Children's Hospital, that's the split screen photo, they've kind of cut Chris Evans out of the picture. It's like, he's even the one in costume. Why would you cut him out? And I think he still has a bit of an uphill battle, even still, despite all of his recent success. But he doesn't give up, and I think that's a great lesson and example for many people in many different careers, not just, of course, those who want to be actors in Hollywood. All right, so speaking of Jeremy Renner, we're going to move over into the third story of the day, which has to do with another franchise that he's kind of a part of, and that's Mission Impossible. The new Mission Impossible movie, number 5, is quickly coming together. They're shooting the ending. They had to take a break, apparently, and some people said it was for reshoots, but Christopher McQuarrie did a Q&A, apparently like on Twitter or something, and that's how a lot of this information came to light. But he said, no, we just had to regroup and come up with the ending or fix it and get ready for it. It sounds pretty suspicious. Movies don't usually do that. They like to shoot all at once instead of taking breaks. But he's saying, no, trust me, this movie's in great shape. We're really happy with the way it's coming together. So they are finishing up the movie, and he gave some details about the tone and the cast. And then also there's something else I want to bring up about the film as well. But let's first talk about what McQuarrie has confirmed. He said that it's going to be, of course, Tom Cruise, Jeremy Renner, Ving Rhames, and Simon Pegg. And Simon Pegg will be a little bit more involved in the action this time. I love Simon Pegg. If you didn't see my tweet about Hector and the Search for Happiness, a recent film that he did that only recently became available on demand, it's phenomenal. Simon Pegg, I think, is not only is he a great comedic actor, but I think he isn't recognized for his dramatic abilities as well. If you haven't seen Hector and the Search for Happiness, go watch it. You have to stick with it. I'd say the first third is only medium, but then it gets so good towards the end, you'll be so happy that you stuck with it and watched it. And he does such a wonderful job in the role. And it's a tough role, too. It's not like just a walk in the park. I think it's the kind of thing that you would think maybe Tom Hanks would have played back in the day when he was probably at Simon Pegg's age. But very, very good movie. And I really would like to see Simon Pegg. It renewed my love of Simon Pegg and rooting for him. I'd kind of written him off, as I think Hollywood largely has, but I'd love to see him, finally be appreciated by the mainstream. mainstream audiences and mainstream Hollywood, and we'll see if maybe the new Star Trek, which she's writing, will help him with that in this Mission Impossible 5. Then also they said that Maggie Q and Paula Patton would not be returning. And this is the first thing I guess we'll discuss it now because it segues into it perfectly. But I thought it was interesting. It occurred to me they've never really had a strong female character in the Mission Impossible movies. There's always just really more of a love interest for Tom Cruise. And I think that's weird for two reasons. One, when you think of Tom Cruise movies, he never really does have a female partner in any of his films. It's always a love interest for Tom Cruise. And, he's someone who, was successful, during a more formulaic time in Hollywood, I guess you could say. And maybe that's just what Tom Cruise feels works for him. So I'm curious if you agree with Tom Cruise, or if you think Tom Cruise should try this new trend of female characters that maybe are love interests as well, but also serve a greater purpose in terms of the story. And then the other thing that's really interesting to me is that there was a strong female character on the original Mission Impossible series, the television series, played by Barbara Bain, and it's very indicative of the times. She played a character named Cinnamon Carter, and she was a model and actress who was the femme fatale of the team. I guess, when you think of spies, they very often are femme fatales, female spies. And I think people should remember that sometimes women make the best spies, as Black Widow and Agent Carter would point out, because they're so often underestimated and not seen as a threat, particularly in, older time periods. Something in Agent Carter that television series explored quite a bit. And I think that Black Widow is also still underestimated, even today, so it doesn't change. But I think that considering the large role of Barbara Bain, her character Cinnamon Carter in the television series, I just think it's interesting that when crafting the film franchise, a number of people have worked on it at this point, but I guess Tom Cruise is the constant. They've never decided to try and bring that character in a large way to the team in the movies. Interesting choice. It's working okay. I mean, I enjoy the Mission Impossible movies. I don't think they're great. I don't think anybody's like, man, what a great franchise. I can't wait for the next one. I think you're like, okay, I'll watch it. It's a big brand. I kind of enjoy it sometimes. It has some action sequences that I can enjoy. And I think that the last one, of course, directed by Brad Bird, stood out for really fantastic toys and some really unique set pieces. So that's what's very interesting about, I think, the casting. But then there's something else that is interesting about this new version is that Christopher McQuarrie said that it's going to be very old school, that it's going to really have a lot of nods to the TV show. It's going to feel almost like a bigger budgeted episode of the TV show. And even stuff like the score is going to seem old school. And I think that's a very interesting and risky choice, considering the fact that the Mission Impossible movies have been so modern. 1 through 4 have been very modern and cutting edge. But then also you already have Kingsman and The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which is coming out. Kingsman: The Secret Service, which you've already seen. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. this summer. So you already have that kind of time period being explored with spies. The Kingsman, of course, takes place in modern day, but it has like a little bit of an antiquated feel, throwback and tradition. It's very traditional. But Kingsman's a great movie, and I think the way it balances traditional with modern is quite impressive. But still, you have that kind of tone. So I think Mission Impossible has really, set itself up for a tough comparison. But we'll see how it works out. I'm very curious indeed. Also, Tom Cruise, doesn't really do period pieces, and when he does, they don't usually work out so well, like Valkyrie, for instance. All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day, and I have a very interesting viewer question for you. And from one of you. This is from Pandora Tello, longtime BTT viewer. When you guys have, I really love, we can see the avatars, for the past maybe couple of years, maybe 2 years, I'm not sure how long they've done it. But it makes it, whenever they introduce Google+, but it makes it so much easier to, get to know you guys and to notice your comments really quickly. So I always notice Pandora's avatar. I don't know if it's Pandora herself, but, faces are particularly memorable. Just humans are always drawn to faces. But anyway, let's get on to Pandora's question. Pandora says, question, I was babysitting my friend's kids, and I turned on the TV for them and a show called Sophia the First. I've actually watched Sophia the First. It's pretty good. Skews very young. But Pandora continues saying, they kept complaining about the princess being a goody two-shoes, and that she was annoying and they wanted me to change it. I asked them who they wanted to see, and they said Elsa or Loki. And it hit me that sure, as an adult I like my heroes and heroines to be more anti-hero, but I didn't realize that this was seeping into what kids want. So my question is if it's a good, bad, or just even a new idea that little kids are being drawn to anti-heroes rather than more traditional heroes with traditional values. The kids are, the boys were 10 and 5, and the little girl is 4. Fascinating. I think right off the bat, we all know Elsa's super popular, but Loki, that they would think of Loki, it really makes you wonder if Marvel is making a mistake sidelining that character for the time being to focus on others. Loki is such a strong character. Tom Hiddleston is so beloved in the role that perhaps they shouldn't be putting him on the sidelines for a significant amount of time, right? I mean, of course, who can forget Comic-Con last year when he came out, told the crowd to hush, and was totally in character. Not a lot of actors would do that, by the way. I think the only other actor I've ever seen do that in character was Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow for Dick Cook, back when Dick Cook was running the motion picture division of Disney, because he and Dick Cook got along so well, and he thought that Dick Cook really looked out for him. So he did him a favor of appearing, I believe it was like a shareholder conference or some such promotional event to that degree. It was like industry-like, but he came in costume, and that was really nice. And so those are the only 2 actors I can think of. Chris Evans did just go to the hospital, but I'm talking about something that was of a professional PR nature. So it's unusual. So kudos to those actors for doing it. But as for your question, Pandora, I think it's great. I think that it certainly is new, but I think it speaks to the sophistication that people are experiencing at younger and younger ages. But also, I just think it's what's available to them. I think that for a long time, now that I think about it, I think, for a long time, only black and white, no grays, either good or evil, was presented to kids as options. But now that there are comic book movies and these big films that have some darker, more sophisticated ideas, even the Disney fairy tales, that, kids are being brought to the movies because they have things that, elements that appeal to kids, and so parents are like, I'll take the kids. So they're being exposed to these grays. And I think it's really wonderful because I think that nobody's all good and nobody's all evil. And I think it's really wonderful that people of all ages, even kids as young as 4, as you said, Pandora, that you were babysitting, are aware of that. And I think it's really good because it gives them more room to define themselves, not to be like, well, I have to be all good or I have to be all bad. I think people like the idea of, I can be 50 Shades of Grey, whatever the inappropriate number of shades of gray is, the appropriate number, it's like 50 is too much, let's say you can be like 30. But I think it's wonderful, and I think it does speak, to kids growing up maybe a little faster than they used to, but I think it's good. I think they find themselves in more adult situations, I think, than perhaps they used to at an earlier age, so you want to make sure they're prepared for that. Nothing's worse than someone who's been sheltered and then is ill-equipped to deal with the situations that they find themselves in. So just as long as they feel safe, I think these lessons are wonderful to see. Also, Loki's not that bad. He's never really been that evil a character. And of course, Elsa is the poster animated girl or character for just wanting to be who you are, even if it isn't what other people want or expect. So great analysis, Pandora. I really like that you brought that to our attention, and I'm very curious to see how other people feel about it. Do you think this is good, or do you think kids should? How do you feel basically about kids maintaining their innocence? And maybe it's not a good idea that kids are being brought to see these superhero movies and these live-action fairy tales. Do you think that maybe we're not being as careful with what we expose kids to? I also have to defend Sophia the First. I think it's a pretty good show. But yeah, Sophia is pretty clean-cut, pretty goody two-shoes. And I think that it's also a teaching kind of show. And I think that kids might not be into that as much either. I think that the messages have to be a little more subtle, a little more organic. And I think they also want more story. If they're watching adult entertainment, I think that the quote-unquote, child entertainment just isn't going to be up to snuff. So that's another side effect. Everybody's watching the same stuff. All right, so thank you so much for your question, Pandora. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and the viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.